campers, and whoever else is listening. It's me, trusty camp director Susan Check, coming to you from this strange and ominous, elevator, I think. I'll be honest. I've followed the evil to the very edges of camp and found myself in a dark place. Literally. And figuratively. I can't see my hand. I can't see my hand when it's right in front of my face! But I know I'm surrounded by beasts. I hear them. I feel them. I smell them. One of them's kind of fishy. Anyway, all of this has led me to the terrifying conclusion that we are not who we are. That's right. Puppeteers. There must be someone pulling the strings, stealing my campers, driving me mad. The elevator. It's moving. It's moving now. Which direction? I can't tell. But I have a feeling something big is coming. A disaster of epic proportions. One that may have an everlasting effect on all of humanity. Holy fuck, what the fuck is that? Sorry, campers, for my language. It's just that... Is that what mermen really look like? Ugh. Susan Check signing off for now. Stay out of the water. And stay safe.
Welcome, friends and strangers, to Bunk 237, a horror movie podcast, the fictional camp that takes place in the fictional woods that we invented to talk about horror movies. I'm one of your hosts, Robin Zlotnick.
I'm the other host, Tuyet Wen. And today's guests are also podcasters and also technically, Robin, not strangers. There's actually no strangers on this podcast at all. These are your friends.
You lived with Jaime for how many years?
I would like to introduce Robin's friends, Jaime, Kennedy, and Josh Roth from the Video High podcast. Hey, guys.
Hello.
Thank you for having us, and thank you for not inviting one extra person, or else we'd be all up for ritual sacrifice to have 5 of us on this podcast.
It's so true.
We're skirting disaster as we are.
Oh my God, it's so true. I was just thinking about this. I've known you guys now for like over 10 years.
I mean, you've known us since before we were
college,
yeah,
so...
and before we
Since
were
college.
together.
We're
and now
so old.
Yeah, we are so old.
So wait, maybe we're safe then. Are we out of the zone of... No, they were like 30-something. They were 30-somethings playing...
Chris Hemsworth's role.
Right.
Yeah.
Playing
like,
college.
let's be clear. Like, okay, so what is the fictional age for like horror movie teens, like youth, horror movie youth? What is the fictional age range for that?
I think in the movies, I feel like they're supposed to be 16 to 19.
Yeah.
And they're always played by 25-year-olds.
Yeah, that sounds better.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
25, so like mid-20s.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely mid-20s.
It's CW rules.
Yeah.
Exactly. I was like,
So
because
true.
there's the fictional age and then the real age. Fictional age is somewhere between 16 to 19-ish. Real age is 25 to 35. So...
And then you have the anomalies when they actually are the correct age, like Jamie Lee Curtis, etc. Like, then it's just like, what?
Wait, how dare you be your actual age?
Exactly.
But I feel like once you get into like characters that are supposed to be in college, then we're getting into like the 30s.
Yeah.
Yes, we
It gets a little rough.
Yeah.
In this movie, especially.
To quote
Speaking
Sigourney
of
Weaver,
which-
we work with what we
Yeah.
have.
Yes, exactly. Speaking of, the movie that we watched for this wonderful episode is Drew Goddard's 2011 meta horror comedy, The Cabin in the Woods. It's about 5 college friends who head out for a weekend of drinking and sex and hanging out in the woods. And then, of course, they get attacked by a zombie redneck torture family, which is different from regular zombies,
Important.
as we learn. But we also learn that this whole horrifying experience is being orchestrated by a team of scientists / corporate drones in order to appease the ancient gods that live beneath the surface of the earth and have the power to destroy the world. The idea for the movie, unfortunately, and as I'm sure we'll get into in a little bit, was Joss Whedon's, but we'll talk about him later. But he did call it a loving hate letter to horror movies, and it's very true. It's very much an homage, but there's also sort of that parody and satire of the tropes that in horror movies that we all love, but can get pretty predictable. It stars freaking Bradley Whitford, Richard Jenkins, Sigourney fucking Weaver, pre-Thor Chris Hemsworth, even though I think it may have come out after the first Thor movie. Anyway, and it's kind of, I think, like a classic at this point. A modern classic. Do you guys remember the first time that you saw this movie?
Oh,
yes.
I mean, this is one of my favorite movies. I mean, the elephant in the room, as you mentioned, is, you know, the co-written and directed by Drew Goddard is now doing a lot of heavy lifting in my mind when I watch this movie, and that's what we kind of have to focus on. Because
Absolutely.
I love this movie, and I remember, I'm actually going to come right out of the gate with a merit badge, because I remember the first time we saw this in a theater, the Glendale Pacific, and it has this cold open with Bradley Whitford and Richard Jenkins walking around a very corporate type office, and might give the merit badge to best non-scare jump scare, because the title, and they're having just a complete banal conversation, and the title, "The Cabin in the Woods," slams with a scream against up on the screen, and everyone in the theater had this simultaneous jump and laugh, and that sets you up for everything that this movie stands for. And I was like, once that happened, I'm like, this is gonna be great.
Yeah, this is definitely one of my favorite, I think, movies. Like, not even just horror movies, like movies. I'm an enormous fan of Evil Dead. Like, that's one of my favorite horror movies. Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness, all that jazz. Sam Raimi, love it. And this movie is so lovingly crafted to emulate that. Like, even the look of the cabin is just like, the lookbook was just, okay, here's Evil Dead. Do that.
100%.
And when we saw it the first time, I'm also an enormous fan of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel and, Firefly,
Me too.
and used to be a huge fan of the man behind those.
Yeah,
let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
I did have a badge for this, which was the God damn it, Joss Whedon badge. To Joss Whedon for really making me question, this idea of separating the art from the artist, which intrinsically in my heart and in my soul, I want to be that person. Because I do think that humanity is important. I think that the way we judge people is important. I think the way we treat each other is important. And hearing these stories come out about these creators that have had such a big impact in my life in so many ways. I grew up at exactly the right age to be in love with Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I was in high school. I was a weird kid. I was there was so much about that series. And everything after that. And also, it was smart, and it was funny, and there was, a strong female lead, and there was, and there was, a prominent gay character. All of these things were, just across the board were so important to, I think, a lot of young people at that time, and a lot of young women at that time. And it's, and it sucks. It sucks. It sucks
really
that
does.
all this stuff came out about Joss Whedon being what seems to be an awful human being. And it's hard. It's there are some things I think in my life that I've been able to there are some things that are easier to write off, but this Joss Whedon thing has been I'm
it's a lot of reckoning.
Yeah.
And
right?
it does unfortunately taint some things even in this movie in back. The Dana backstory hits a certain different way now. The fact that she had this affair with her older teacher, and she's still pining over him, and what does that mean for her character as the virgin, as the archetype that she's supposed to be playing? And that part didn't really sit well with me. There are, there's a few jokes throughout the movie that don't sit well with me 10 years later, right? More than, when did this come out?
Is it?
Yeah, just about 10
10 years ago.
Yeah, so, there's certain things where I'm like, but it still doesn't, overall, I still just love this movie.
I know. Because
It's so
it is
solid.
Yeah, because like what we're talking about with like how Drew Goddard is really carrying a lot of the weight now, but it's also like on any movie, television show, any piece of media, it is a team of people that put this together. It's like a bunch, the actors, the writers, all the production team. So it's like to write it off entirely because of one man's actions, like it's a tough thing to kind of reconcile, because it's also like a lot of that, again, was important to me at a particular time in my life. But it is sort of like, oh, what do we do? What do we do here?
Right?
Yeah,
But
it definitely
it's
helps.
like a good movie.
It helps. It definitely helps me from like a moral standpoint that Drew Goddard directed it and also co-wrote it.
I was
like,
gonna say that. I hope he's a good dude.
If it comes out that he's not, I will be very upset.
He directed The Good Place, guys. So, like, he
has
has to be. That's the rule.
It's
That's
in the
rule.
title.
It's in the title. The Good Place. Only good people are there. What? Wait, you mean, wait.
Is this the bad place?
That's not, shoot.
Sit down, you weirdos. It's time to watch a movie.
Video High is your B-movie education. A roundtable deep dive into cinema's least appreciated movies.
I genuinely liked this more than Jurassic Park.
I will.
Josh has quit.
Josh is leaving.
We dig into action, horror, exploitation, strange crossovers, and more.
Who else's favorite character was the bartender pirate?
To give insight stories and wild theories.
This movie is Mormon propaganda.
Join classmates Casey Regan, Josh Roth, Greg Hansen, and myself, Jamie Kennedy, for a field trip down the cinematic rabbit hole.
This movie is car chases stopped briefly by other scenes.
Yeah, you can argue it's one car chase.
So if you're like us and you think most trash is actually treasure, enroll in Video High today.
A fight between heavy machinery and a Tyrannosaurus Rex. If you're calling that anticlimactic, stop watching movies. You will never be satisfied.
Pull up a chair and catch us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
School is back in session August 5th.
Well, you know what?
Chicken butt?
Chicken butt.
This is one movie where every time I watch it, I think about how I reacted in theaters when I saw it the first time, and it's like a weird replaying, like a weird super nostalgic replaying of my experience. I guess I'll give a badge for this scene. It made me laugh so hard when I saw it in theaters, and ever since, it's like that when that happens in the movie, I just love it so much. And forgive my singing, but I'm calling it the I Keep on Falling badge. Kurt's death when he motorcycles into the electrified dome and then falls and continues to fall for many seconds.
A good scene.
That's
so
gold.
funny.
Absolute
I
gold.
have a comment on that too, because overall, there's a very bad version of this movie that could have been made. And the version is you don't follow everything that's happening behind the scenes. You're just following these college kids in a cabin. Scary things happen to them. And at the end, it's all revealed via the Sigourney Weaver monologue. This was all happening. And you're kind of putting some pieces together. But this movie works because from the beginning, they are showing you everything that's happening behind the scenes and you're watching it in tandem. So even when Chris Hemsworth hits that wall, we kind of know it's going to happen because early in the movie we see a bird fly into it. So but you totally forget by that point that's even they lay it out for you. You have forgotten, and it makes the hit even harder and more hilariously.
And they build it up with his dumbass speech.
Yes. And I've never jumped something this far before. It's got 5-foot differential on the other side.
5-foot differential gets me.
He's like, don't hold back. And Chris Hemsworth goes, I never do.
For
It is
And then
Jules.
just fucking dies.
So hard.
spectacular death. I think probably my favorite death of the whole movies.
It's also the moment that, like, when Dana realizes that Marty was right and that this whole thing is being puppeteered. And I feel like that is like a linchpin moment in the movie, not only because it's so much damn fun, but because our final girl has realized that there is this whole other shadow thing happening. And then you kick into the third act of the movie, which is entirely in the basement, and it's a different movie altogether. And it's also something that, like, I want to give this movie the such a teaser badge for not having a bunch of stuff in the trailer to spoil everything that's in the movie, because I vividly remember, like, the opening of the movie and sitting in the theater, and it opens in with a coffee machine in a bland corporate landscape, and you're just sitting there like, am I in the right movie? And they're talking about cabinets and baby proofing, and you're like, what's happening? None of that. Like, there was little hints in the trailer of, like, something is going on, and I rewatched the trailer just to make sure that I wasn't misremembering everything. But none of, like, the moment of Chris Hemsworth slamming into that digital wall would have been in the trailer now if this movie came out in 2020.
Right.
Yeah. I remember going to the movie not really knowing that much, and everything that was revealed throughout, being very, very surprised by that. And we've talked about the opening scene a couple times now, but I think it's a fun piece of trivia that was done very much on purpose to confuse people thinking that they walked into the wrong movie.
So good.
And then that's why there's the, like, when the title card comes up, like, that they wanted that to be a shock. They wanted that to be, I mean, very, very purposeful and so fun and so smart. And I think what I really liked about this, what I realized is, like, well, this is a pretty genuinely superficial horror movie. You know, it's like, I think there's a lot of layers to different horror movies. A lot of movies with, you know, overarching themes or, like, subplots or, like, you know, subtext and other things. And this one is just like, oh no, we just like horror movies and we're fun. Like, there's nothing, like, I'm not taking a lot of, like, personal stuff out of this, except for maybe the consideration of what I need to do with Joss Whedon in my brain. But aside from that, the movie itself, very surface in kind of the best way. Like, I really also loved this movie.
Yeah, it's not the first one to combine horror and comedy and sending up the tropes of the genre, because Scream is responsible, I'd say, for that, and a few things before it. But it really did, like, pick up that torch long after we had stopped considering horror as, like, a moldable genre. And I think having this out there in the world helped usher in, like, a whole new slew of, oh, what can we do with horror? Like, how can we make it funny? How can we make it sad? Like what is horror now to us who have, like, 30-40 years of examining the genre, and how can we keep putting new twists on it? And I think it really did help usher in kind of that new landscape for horror.
Ooh, interesting. I think you're totally right. Like, almost to the fact that, like, Blumhouse wouldn't exist without Cabin in the Woods.
Blumhouse would definitely, like, not have been as successful as it was, I think, without Cabin in the Woods. I think about that a lot, because that's kind of their shtick now, is, like, what twist can we put on horror? I don't want to lump Jordan Peele into it, because I think Jordan Peele is his own entity, and he's doing his own stuff with the genre. But Blumhouse specifically, I think, took what Cabin in the Woods was putting down and ran with it.
Yeah, you can draw a direct line from this to one of my other favorite horror movies, Happy Death Day.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like Cabin in the Woods, like, crawled so that Final Girl could run.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, Final Girl.
Also one of my favorite. Like,
yeah, another great movie.
Oh, God. I love horror movies.
I love horror movies, too. And what I like about this is, like, you know, we're always trying to figure out, like, what the big evil is or what the big bad is. Joss Whedon term. But the bureaucracy of evil is so funny. It's so funny in this.
So funny.
The betting pool maintenance, the intern,
all
of it.
I have the tequila is my coping mechanism.
My favorite line in the movie.
Oh,
Bradley Whitford is the
fantastic.
MVP of everything he's in, but he's especially the MVP of this movie.
So
and
good
teaming him
in
up with
this.
Richard Jenkins is absolute genius. You put those two people together, and it's
Would
it's
watch
magic.
them do anything.
Yeah.
I would watch a whole movie of just like the days that they worked at that job where nothing happened.
Yeah, the
Like
rest of the year where they're just sitting around waiting for the
There
sacrifice.
should be a workplace comedy. Speaking of the bureaucracy of evil, I had a work badge that was the working 9 to 5. What a way to make a killing badge. And I would like to present that to all the workers at the facility for having a wild moral compass while continuing to keep their noses to the grind.
It's so relatable. Like, this could be the Facebook office.
Yes, yes.
No.
Like, all the people who are just like going into work day to day to commit evil.
Yeah, right? The toxic corporate work environment.
I would love to piggyback off that with my wear avocado toast merit badge for, of course, millennials cause the end of the world. Like, because I think almost honestly
Yes.
this would work. If this was 10 years later, it almost fits
Ooh.
better for a Gen Z environment, but I'll take credit. Like, I think there's such a fascinating undercurrent to this where millennials are being asked to sacrifice themselves for the greater good. And why won't you do this thing that we've done
Yes.
forever? This is how the world works. This is how capitalism works. And they're just like, I don't want to. Like, maybe
Yeah.
it shouldn't work that way. And maybe the world should be a different way. And we should just like blow it all up and try again. And I love that
Oh
that's
my
the
God.
cause of the end of the world.
It's so current.
I
God damn.
loved that ending, and I love
Yeah.
that interpretation. I love this modern interpretation of that. At the very, very end, when Marty and Dana are just like, maybe the next group will be better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually have the humanity ... Because that's kind of what it is in a nutshell. Like, man, humanity sucks.
Yeah.
But I also had a question that I kind of like, I came across online, and then people had like different theories. Is why was this the year that every ritual failed?
I'm going to blame millennials. Honestly, I think that there's enough public consciousness. I thought about this a lot when we watched this time. I think at this point in the timeline of the movie, there is enough consciousness of people being online and living lives and the world being a complete garbage fire of a place that like people are sick of adhering to the roles that are being laid out to them. And, you know, it was this around the same time I feel like that all of the revolution started happening because of Twitter, you know, where people were being able to organize and like do riots and protests a lot more frequently because that we had this greater mode of communication. And I feel like it's just that. It's just that feeling of we know more than the people who knew us, but who came before us, and we're not going to take it anymore.
Yeah.
We're fighting back.
It's so true, and there were such good moments that illustrated that in the movie, like where the zombies have gotten jewels and they're running down the hallway in the cabin, and Chris Hemsworth goes, whatever happens, we have to stick together.
Yes.
And Bradley Whitford and Richard Jenkins are both like, God damn it. And then they have to release this gas that makes Chris Hemsworth dumber and just be like, no, wait, that's wrong. We have to split up. And they're forcing them to adhere to these tropes and these roles that none of them fit in, even from the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
Remember, they had to make Jules dumber and dye her hair blonde.
Kurt is
Chris
a
Hemsworth.
sociology
Kurt-
student.
Yeah, on full academic scholarship.
Yeah.
They went a little hard
They
with
did
some
go
of them.
a little hard on him. But I like that Marty was impervious to it because he was a stoner. And they
Super
were like,
stoner.
I love
Yeah.
Marty so much in this
Me
movie.
too,
Every
me too.
line he has is just absolute gold. This is barter gas. Nemo,
Right.
your shit's all fucked up.
he's so good in it. I have a badge to him. I have the stoner boner badge specifically to the actor Fran Kranz for my favorite piece of trivia from the movie, which is the partial reason that he dresses in the baggy clothes he does. And if you remember the lake scene, he's the only one that doesn't jump in the lake. He's like fully clothed standing on the dock. And the reason that he is part of the reason that he's fully clothed and he's wearing baggy clothes is that he is apparently super ripped. And it would have been, he's apparently very, very fit, as fit, if not more fit than the other two actors. And so production and Drew Goddard, where they were like, well, that wouldn't really fit with his character. So they kept him in baggy clothes as sort of like this stoner. But he's like,
I love that so much.
So good. And I want you to know, I also confirmed it online just because after I read that, I was like, I have to see this. And I was
Gotta
like,
Google
I did. And I want you guys to know, confirmed.
Oh, man.
You
I
love to
this.
see it.
What a development. I love this so much.
That's fantastic. Oh my God, that's so good.
I have the smoke weed do drugs badge because this movie pretty much is pro pot. I mean, like the only character who smokes is, as like you said, impervious to the gases, smarter than everyone, knows what's going on, doesn't fall for anyone's bullshit, and survives to the end. So that's the lesson. That's the moral of this movie.
Well, don't tell the Olympics that. We don't
Smoke
need to
weed.
tell them that.
Right?
Don't tell them that.
I would like to work really hard to earn that badge. That's what I've been doing all summer.
He also uses his bong as a weapon, which is so good. That
Amazing.
The extendable telescope bong, that coffee mug thing.
Yeah. Which,
Beautiful.
another note, that is a fully functional like mug / bong that they made for the movie. The prototype cost like $5,000 to make, but that was a real thing that
Bless
they made.
you. Props.
Worth every penny.
Oh.
I do want to award this film the Never Split the Party merit badge for people acting like actual people, which is one of my favorite things that happened I think definitely just post this with meta horror movies. Although I guess Scream would have been the first one to do it, where the characters in the movie are so aware of the tropes of horror movies that they're like, yeah, why would we actually do that thing that we like? No, I'm drawing a fucking line in the sand at reading the Latin.
Right.
Like you don't read from the Kandarian demon book. You don't do that.
Yeah.
You know that only ends in death and horror.
Yeah. Speaking of the basement of horrors, which thing would you guys have gravitated to?
Oh, great question.
Oh.
Probably the film reel.
Oh.
I probably would have been like Marty. I don't know what that connected to, but I think the film reel was like.
I think that's an Insidious sort of thing.
Oh God, that makes sense considering that's my scariest horror
Sinister?
movie. Sinister.
Sinister, right.
Ooh.
The conch, probably the conch.
Would have loved to see a merman.
Yep.
I would have gravitated probably towards like the Hellraiser puzzle. You know, it's like this cool, weird, intricate thing, and it's like I love those kind of those table puzzles like that. That would have been my demise for sure.
I think I would have summoned the Buckners all day long. Can't resist. Can't resist
diary?
A creepy old diary.
Yep.
Can't do it.
Read that Latin.
I would have read it out loud to everyone.
multiple times. If someone was like upstairs
times.
getting a drink, you'd be like, I have to read this again. Look at this crazy.
The Buckners are just outside
put
being
it
like,
under
"Are
my
we summoned
pillow.
at
I would
4?"
have taken it home with me. I love a creepy old diary.
I think this is very indicative of our personalities.
I think it's so true.
Yeah, related to that, I want to give it the pause please merit badge because especially this being 2011, I feel like this was just on the cusp, maybe not collectively on the internet, but for me, like I hadn't discovered Reddit as an entity yet, but I spent so many wormholes after this movie, like trying to find every forum talking about it, people like pulling up screenshots, like wanting to look at that whiteboard and seeing what every single monster option was and then trying to cross-reference it with what you can see in the basement. Like they build such an incredible lore and you want to see the like I know the world ends and we can't have a franchise of this and also Joss Whedon, but like it is something that begs for you want to see every outcome play out.
Right,
also internationally,
right.
What is the Japanese horror tropes that they play into? What are the Swedish horror tropes that they're playing into? Like
there's two shots that I think of with that totally like there's the entire basement scene. There's the, like you said, the whiteboard, which I have paused, I think, every time
Kevin.
I watch this movie. Kevin.
Kevin.
What is
It
Kevin?
was Kevin.
I love Kevin.
I read about Kevin. Kevin apparently is just like, I think it might have been Joss Whedon who described him as a dude who works at Best Buy who's just like a serial killer.
No thanks.
like a regular guy, but like a serial killer.
How do you
Very
summon
smart,
Kevin?
and
You
that
just call
totally
Best Buy?
Works.
Oh no. Maybe the film reel was home video.
Oh no!
No, I was just picturing like a scrap of paper with a phone number on it, and it's like you call it, and it's like, "Hi, thanks for calling Best Buy." Of all of the little the references, the connections, as a horror movie fan, if you're watching it, you're seeing all little things that like you can recognize. I did have a badge for that, which was the Monster Squad badge for for all of the knockoff monsters, because
I
even
have
though
Monster Squad badge written down.
All right, see,
Amazing.
important, amazing.
It's so true because like the Hellraiser guy is like not quite Hellraiser.
But you know it's the Hellraiser guy, but you know it's not. But you know it's not.
Right.
You know it's
All
the
of
strangers,
off-brand
but
enough.
it's not the strangers.
Yep.
Yeah,
It's
totally.
not
right.
it, but it's it.
It's it.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
Right.
Just that knockoff
And
monster.
it
Fantastic.
like that stuff totally to me fit with the tone of the movie and like didn't detract from it that it wasn't actually Pennywise or whatever.
Right.
Like it just made sense.
I feel like this is a good time for me to bring out the Stephen King me badge for best use of an elevator in a horror movie. Suck it, The Shining.
oh,
Yeah.
That shot is one of my favorite shots in horror moviedom. When all of the every monster you can think of, there's the tree from Evil Dead, the vampire bat, which is so coolly designed. Like everything flies out and there's the blood everywhere. And then there's the second ding.
Second ding.
Oh, which is just absolute gold.
I wonder how many like ding sound effects they went through to find that perfect
Oh.
one.
probably a lot.
Oh, they auditioned that for sure. Some AE had a string out somewhere, and it was just like this one.
Yeah, totally. I also like the addition of the sort of the quirky monsters, like the teeth ballerina.
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't think if that was from something. Like, I mean, and there's like the unicorn, like that's very funny.
Oh,
Classic.
That sound
yeah, you're
effect
right.
too,
There's some there are some monsters that don't fit into those categories of a classic genre of like stuff that we've seen a million times before. Like even the Merman. Like
And exactly,
I've never
yeah,
seen that thing before.
and I will say Merman sequence, so funny because it like they keep referencing it at the beginning, he keeps bringing it up, and then like when it finally shows up, huge payoff.
Perfect.
And it totally worked. I love
The blood
Merman.
hole. The blood hole.
Yeah.
So good.
It's
And of
so
course
funny.
that's how Bradley Whitford eats it. Like it's so
Yeah.
good.
Of course.
Oh man.
I just want to see a merman.
No, everything is so specifically plotted and like laid out and outlined in the perfect way. Like I love this movie's
It's
structure.
tight as a drum.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought about that during the sex scene where they're running through the woods and trying, and it just keeps cutting back to the office where they're like, oh, it's too dark. And they're like, all right, well, turn the light up. Like, it's too cold. Well, all right, temperature goes up. And it's like perfectly edited and hilarious, but still like ominous. Like you knew what was coming.
Yeah, everything. The movie telegraphs itself so well. Like you said, telegraph I think is really the right term because because it knows what's going on. It knows the game. And it's playing with your expectations of the game. So you're expecting the unexpected, but then it really subverts your unexpected expectations.
You don't expect them to go into the bureaucracy bureau of horror. Like
Right.
that's a surprise.
Yeah,
And hit the
and
purge
such a
button.
delight.
And hit the purge button.
Who
Okay.
put that there? Why do you have that?
Purge button.
That's a
Why?
Galaxy Quest level. Who wrote this?
I read one theory is that it existed because, like, what if the gods decided they were done and they needed all the monsters to kill each other, and they would get all the humans out of there and then hit purge, and then the monsters would destroy themselves. However, no, that doesn't work. Also, you don't make it like super accessible and like right there in the control booth.
Right.
You have
yeah,
two
yeah,
keys.
To accidentally hit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Our puppy turns on a Roomba every day. Like, of course someone's gonna hit the purge button. My other question is, all the monsters, did they harvest them from other parts of the globe? Because if this is a world where the gods run everything, like, do these monsters actually exist? Or, like the chem department, did they create all of these monsters to be unstoppable creations?
I think they built them.
You think they built them?
I think they
that was always my
harvested them.
idea.
Interesting. I thought they harvested them because they all sort of seem to be from ancient ritual, or like sort of. I think most horror movie monsters have an origin story of, some sort of evil origin story of coming from the earth somehow, right? Like,
maybe it's kind of a mix of the both, and the ancient gods just like that's what they do on their off time. They just create these monsters.
Oh yeah.
That's a good thought. Yeah, there is
clearly they love to see this stuff.
There is this Ouroboros of like. These stories have existed from the dawn of time, and that's how every story has then happened. But then we then turn these stories into reality, and like, where does the story and the legend begin, and where does like humanity begin?
Right.
Yeah,
it's a real chicken and the egg situation.
Yeah, I always had assumed that it was them creating the monsters from our horror stories.
But they're implying that our horror stories come from the oldest stories. Like, that's why they have like the archetypes that they're sacrificing these teenagers, college students to. They're saying these stories have always been there. So like Evil Dead comes from, the oldest stories that we're telling of these archetypes, and then vice versa. Again, Ouroboros of horror.
Yeah.
Horribus.
Oh, that's very good.
Oh, shit.
That's very, very good.
And notably, the stories are different in every culture.
Oh, that's also great.
Very important
Which
point
is so
that I like
good.
that they make.
Can we talk about that classroom of little Japanese girls who just sing their way to safety? I just loved them so much.
Fuck you! Fuck you!
It's
That is
so good.
It's so
good.
funny. It's so funny. And they should win all of the badges, that group of like, 9-year-old Japanese girls.
Also, the amount of times I've used "The Evil is Defeated" as a GIF in the past 10 years. I owe them that alone. Speaking of children, my last merit badge I wanted to give was the DeVoe Chase Memorial Merit Badge for Haunted Children. DeVoe Chase is not dead, but she famously is the girl who played The Ring. And I just want to give a shout out to Jodelle Ferland, who plays Patience Buckner, because she made a semi-career for a moment of playing these haunted little girls, because she was a haunted ghost girl in an episode of Supernatural. She was the voice of Aggie the Witch Ghost in Paranorman. She was the voice of Little Sister in the BioShock games, and Alessia in Silent Hill.
Wait, she was the voice of the little girl?
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's so cool.
Yeah.
That's so crazy. I wonder what it like. Is she just a pale girl?
Yes. Just like DeVoe Chase once upon a time,
I guess. That's amazing. I love that.
That's
love
great.
that for her.
Yeah.
She had her moment at the end too, where she acts as Sigourney Weaver and helps save the day / destroy the day. But
a little bit of both.
Oh man, some of the writing is real silly, but like in a fun, like it's not the way that people talk.
No, it's the Aaron Sorkin, Joss Whedon.
Yeah.
Heightened. Like you wish you talked like that.
Everyone's very, very clever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that. Probably because I watched a lot of television in the aughts where like it was like Gilmore Girls, Buffy.
Yeah.
It was like a lot of even Dawson's Creek, right? I think that was probably one of the biggest ones that were like teenagers do not have that many thoughts, but I'm okay because I understand that it's fiction. Like I don't want characters to talk like me. That's what we have the hills for. Like I want them to be that's why I'm watching a movie. I'm trying to disassociate.
It also fits with, I think, the meta horrorness of the movie itself, where it's so self-aware that the characters themselves have to be self-aware.
Exactly.
For their actions to make any sense.
Well, and everything has to feel written in order for
feel scripted.
Yeah, feel
exactly.
scripted. If we're living a horror movie, like it has to be scripted like a movie.
And and it does lead to all the great subversions, like when the Harbinger is on the speakerphone.
Yes.
Am I on speakerphone right now? And then Bradley Whitford's delivery of, it happened again. does it end?
So good. So good. Okay, I have a question. If we are living in a horror movie, should we stay together or should we split up?
Never split the party.
Stay.
But we
together.
cover more ground that way, guys.
I'm with
You
What does that
going?
mean?
I'm with Jamie. Honestly, I'm with Jamie because, like,
You're every man for himself. You're done.
well, no, I'm not every man for himself.
No, it's
just-
Scooby Doo. It's you
when
split up
they're-
into partners.
Right,
Jones's
right.
plans
I mean,
never work. What's
buddy
up with
system.
have a buddy.
Buddy system.
But when they're
Buddy
first like
system, I
securing the
like
house, you know, when they're first securing the house, it's in my brain. I was like, well, yeah. I mean, the monsters are right out there. You should probably get everyone spread out, secure the house, and then come back together. But I guess that's
It
also
never
You're never
works.
getting
Downfall,
back.
I know.
You're never meeting again. As soon as you're out of eyesight of the other people, you're done. You're never seeing your friends again.
And I think what else is fun is that, like, even the smart characters, Marty, that sort of start to figure it out and understand what's going on, even as aware as everyone is, even when they're trying to make the right decision and they make decisions that I think we as an audience think that we would make, that everyone still fails. Like, everyone still gets killed. You know, like, even you can do all the right things and still not make it to the end.
I think I'm gonna have to choose werewolves. I know no one asked this question, but that's how I choose
No,
to die.
this is a
in
good
Kennedy.
question.
It's an
We
important
should
question.
definitely-
This
Yeah.
is good. This is good.
We
Okay.
should.
I choose
yeah,
the
we should
werewolf.
Go through this.
Still
You choose the
painful.
werewolf?
Werewolf.
Yep. But you can maybe fight it. I'm gonna say you can maybe fight the werewolf off.
You
So
have a chance.
You have a
yeah.
chance.
Like you said,
That
and
was
with
a
werewolves, they're
scary
wolves.
It was
werewolf.
scary.
It was a scary werewolf.
Which monster do I want to die by?
Ooh. Okay, definitely not clown. No, thank you. No, thank you.
No,
Josh's
yeah,
worst
no,
fear.
Not for
Nope.
me.
Nope. Legitimate phobia of clowns. So not doing that.
I don't know. I'm curious to see what the little ballet girl does.
Ooh, yeah.
Seems
but I
slow.
don't think I want.
Seems
I don't think I
slow.
want it. Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say unicorn, but I feel like I can't outrun a unicorn.
Oh, every one of us is dying no matter what monster we choose. You just have to pick one.
Okay,
I
so
don't-
it's,
Yeah.
those are the
so it's not
rules of the
survival.
game.
It's not about like who could I
No.
survive.
Right.
It's what death do I choose? Then maybe
Yes.
unicorn.
Yeah. Why not?
It's so
I
majestic.
think it'd be fast. That's the other thing. Like,
Yeah.
I choose
Well, that's what
werewolf
I
also
want. I
because
want-
it's kind of fast.
I want fastest, least painful, and
Yeah.
I'm thinking if it's like the ghost demon thing, maybe it just sucks out my soul and I'm done.
Oh,
okay.
Okay.
That's good. I'm going to go with Merman, honestly, because I think that that's very fun, and
Fun.
I would like to see that before I die. Just like,
Yeah.
just for my own personal benefit. I think it's real weird and unique. Probably smells, but I don't know. There's something about it that's it's
Yep.
so weird and gross. And I also love the subversion that like a merman would be hideous.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's not
and
Channing Tatum.
some, yeah, not some underwater god, you know?
You just always picture Channing
I
Tatum.
just always say everything. Sorry, I have blindness to all characters. Anything I picture in any book I read is just a bunch of Channing Tatums. It's like being John Malkovich, but with Channing Tatums.
Wait, do you think the merman later becomes Aquaman? Do you think like that's
I
Jason
hope so.
Momoa? Like the origin story of Aquaman is that he starts
What a
as a
glow up.
merman and then he starts right?
He just takes Bradley Whitford's skin and wears it.
Yeah.
I want to see every single monster. I want to see all the other countries. I just want to live. I don't want to live in this world, but I want to spend so much time in this world.
Yeah.
Kind of a related thing and a question that I have that could very well be a good prequel is what happened in 98.
Yes.
Ooh,
It
yes.
was Chem Department's fault.
Chem Department's fault. There's a theory that it's the faculty. Which makes a lot of
Ooh.
sense.
That makes a lot of sense. I was curious what
that's
other horror
good.
movies came out in 1998.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I think there was another theory that it's the movie The Cabin, which I don't know much
I haven't
about.
seen that.
But that would, I think, if we're going to make another Cabin in the Woods movie, I want to see what happened in 98.
We can kind of only go backwards considering the world
Right.
did end. So,
Right.
Yeah, I would love
That's
that.
very true.
Yeah.
My final badge is the gold meta badge.
I spent a good half hour trying to come up with something with meta in it, and I couldn't. So
That's why she's the comedy writer.
They win the gold meta for all the references.
at the end of the day, what I think I love most about this movie is that it is a horror movie lover's horror movie. And it's refreshing to see that, especially like it is a nihilistic movie because the world ends, but I feel like it came at a time when like a lot of horror had become so rote and so just the same thing, like over and over and over again. And I was bored. And then this happened and it was like a shot in the arm. It felt so refreshing and so new, but it's so old at the same time.
Josh, you are so good at talking. Is there another place
Isn't he though?
that we can hear you talk more?
If only there were a show. Wait a minute.
Whoa.
Jaime and I are co-hosts of the Video High podcast, a podcast about bad movie or B movies.
Yeah, not bad
necessarily
movies.
Bad movies.
No.
It's your B movie education and ours, and we watch a bunch of B movies and talk about them. And you can hear me talk more passionately about some of my favorite movies that we watched on there that are B movies that people have never seen and I've never heard of, like The
Stranger,
Neon City.
Yep.
God, there's so many good movies. Busted Up. We've watched some incredible movies on that show, and also
you
some
guys
not so incredible ones.
Find some wild ones.
That's all
that
Greg.
I've never-
Greg has a room of VHS tapes, and so he can find
Amazing.
any tape for all of our needs.
Yeah, we spit out a genre, and Greg finds something incredibly unique that nobody's ever heard of, and no show has talked about, except we had, so one of the movies we watched, a gnome named Gnorm, which is one of my favorite movies we've watched on the show, and also a great episode. We recorded that episode, and because our show takes a while to make, it came out after How Did This Get Made did an episode on a gnome named Gnorm. They scooped us.
Yeah, I don't know how it happened. Are they paying attention to us? I don't know. It's like they're trained comedians and we're not, but whatever.
Somehow.
Jaime, is there anywhere, anything you want to plug? Anything, any
shows on Hulu?
Yeah.
But yes, you can find Video High at Video High Podcast on a whole bunch of different socials, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, even for the olds, if you are interested.
And videohigh.fm.
Yep. And I am also, when I'm not podcasting, a television editor. And my most recent show, Love Victor Season 2, premiered on Hulu, and I'm super proud of it. And then on my block, the final season will be coming out later this year. And if you make YA-themed shows and are looking for an editor, I'm looking to do it.
Amazing.
This whole thing was a job interview. Thank you so much for coming. We'll get back to you as soon as we can.
Fantastic. Are you working on the new Sister to the Traveling Pants 3? Because that's truly what I want. And there are 2 Sister to the Traveling Pants franchise actors in Cabin in the Woods, so it's very important to me for that reason. Bradley Whitford and Jesse Williams.
God, Bradley Whitford's
you've
in
thought
everything.
about this.
I have thought
okay,
about this.
Well, if any sisterhood producers are out there,
Yep.
Thank you
we
for
got
listening.
you an editor.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening, everybody, and hire Jaime Kennedy.
Somewhere in there is an ending.
Bunk 237, a horror movie podcast, stars Tuyet Wen and Robin Zlotnick as the final girls of Bunk 237, and introducing Alex Skoke as camp director Susan Check. The show is produced by me, Shane Segretti. Our theme song is written and performed by Dan Zlotnick, and our outro music is written and performed by Axe Slasher. You can rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, and it may be featured on an upcoming episode. Have a badge of your own for this movie? Follow us on Instagram at Bunk237Pod and Twitter at Bunk237, and let us know. If you haven't already, please subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are downloaded.